I had a seizure on the plane. The first seizure I had, my homie walked up to me and said, "Let's get off the plane, man." They say you had a seizure. I say, "Man, stop lying."
Rick Ross built $1 million empire, but behind the luxury cars and those mansion gates, the biggest boss was fighting battles nobody saw coming. Seizures, birthday drive-by shootings, and enemies airing out his darkest truths. It was chaos. The man who preached power and success almost lost it all, including his own life. But what saved him? The answer will leave you shocked. Let's break it down. The boss who almost flatlined. When you hear Rick Ross, what's the first thing that hits your mind? You probably think of the biggest boss, Maybach music, that flashy, bossed-up lifestyle most people only dream of. But behind the champagne toasts and million-dollar cigars was a story that cuts deep. A man who looked death dead in the face, not once but several times, and somehow kept breathing.
What's your proudest business venture?
Well, you know, I love everything I do. I can't even front. You know what I'm saying? Everything, I put my heart into it all. But my latest business venture, my Jet Doc, which is a health app.
William Leonard Roberts II, better known as Rick Ross, was born January 28, 1976 in Clarksdale, Mississippi, but it was the rough streets of Carroll City, Florida that made him. That's where young William learned the hustle, where survival was the daily mission. He had big dreams that didn't fit the size of his circumstances. He played football at Albany State University, grinding hard before music ever paid a single bill. Before the fame, before the Maybachs, he clocked in at a 9-to-5, one that would later explode into a huge controversy. But we'll circle back to that. Then came 2006, and everything flipped. Ross dropped Hustlin', and boom, that track became the ultimate street anthem, the soundtrack for everyone fighting to escape the mud. The song captured Miami's raw street energy, that grind-hard spirit, and suddenly Ross wasn't just another rapper, he was a movement. His debut album, Port of Miami, shot straight to #1 on the Billboard 200. The game had to respect it. The South had a new heavyweight. But here's the part nobody likes to talk about.
I had a seizure on the plane. The first seizure I had, my homie walked up to me and said, "Let's get off the plane, man." They say you had a seizure. I say, "Man, stop lying."
That same hunger that pushes you to the top, it can be the same beast that eats you alive from the inside. Rick Ross wasn't just stacking paper, he was silently breaking down. His body was throwing red flags long before the world even noticed. The man was overworking, under-resting, and chasing success like his life depended on it, because in his mind, it did. What Ross later shared came straight from the heart. Real pain, not just music talk. It was that type of hurt that forces you to rethink every move, every late night, every grind session that cost a piece of your health. Then came October 14th, 2011, a day that flipped Ross's whole life upside down. While traveling, he suffered not 1, but 2 seizures within 6 hours. Imagine it. Rick Ross, one of the biggest names in hip-hop, suddenly collapsing mid-flight from Fort Lauderdale to Memphis. The cabin goes silent, flight attendants rushing in, performing CPR as the plane makes an emergency landing. For a moment, he wasn't just the boss. He was fighting to stay alive. They found him unresponsive. They literally had to bring him back from the edge. But just when everyone thought he was out of danger, boom, another seizure struck.
And most definitely, that's what's really driving me. The fact that I've had a seizure, and, you know, I woke up, you know, from being unconscious on the toilet before. And I've never even spoke on this, but I've suffered from seizures a long time. Like I said, I've deprived myself of rest, no sleep, maybe 2 to 3 hours on a good night. You know, staying up, chasing my dreams. I always thought I had the best excuses, but don't nothing come before life in itself.
This time, it landed him in a hospital in Birmingham, Alabama. 2 seizures, 6 hours, 1 single day. That could have easily been Rick Ross's last breath on this earth. He didn't even realize what happened. His body had completely tapped out. That's how far gone Ross was from his own health, totally disconnected, running on fumes while chasing greatness. At first, doctors blamed it on exhaustion. Too many sleepless nights, too much work, not enough rest. But later, Ross revealed the truth was way darker. The seizures weren't just from fatigue, they were worsened by heavy drug use. Picture this, Ross barely catching 2 to 3 hours of sleep on a good night. Wild, right? While he was building Maybach Music Group, signing artists like Meek Mill and Whale, dropping hit after hit, he was also burning out behind the scenes. Ross was sipping that codeine syrup, mixing it with other stuff, convincing himself it was just part of the grind. part of being the boss. But that lifestyle came with a deadly price tag. In his 2019 memoir, Hurricanes, Ross got brutally honest about it all. He opened up about his long-term codeine addiction, saying he used it to cope with pressure from non-stop tours, business moves, and beefs in the industry. Mix that with alcohol, other substances, and barely any sleep, and you've got a ticking time bomb. His body couldn't take it anymore, and that 2011 seizure scare, that was just the warning shot. The real wake-up call came 7 years later, and it nearly ended everything. On March 2nd, 2018, around 3:34 a.m., Ross was found unresponsive at his Miami mansion.
Got that call that morning. We were given misinformation. They was actually doing CPR at the time, and they had turned the airplane around in Atlanta. That was the wrong information that we got initially, and it was devastating. Because when you hear CPR, you know you're losing a person.
The 911 call that night was chilling. The caller said Ross was breathing heavy, foaming at the mouth, and might have lost control of his body. That's how bad it got. When paramedics arrived, Ross was so disoriented, he started fighting back. They had to call in police just to get him to the hospital. At first, it was reported as pneumonia, but once details surfaced, the truth looked way worse. Sources said it might have been a heart attack. Ross was placed on ECMO, extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, basically life support that keeps your heart and lungs going when they start to fail. Imagine that. The biggest boss in hip-hop hooked up to life support, literally fighting for every breath. Ross later admitted that when he woke up, he thought he was already gone. He opened his eyes, saw police officers with their weapons out, and genuinely believed some ops had slid on him and that he was living through the aftermath. That's how deep his mind and body were spiraling. He couldn't tell what was real anymore. That kind of trauma changes you forever. He wasn't just battling his health. He was battling his own perception of reality. But here's the wild part. It didn't stop there. Fast forward to 2022, and Ross found himself in another terrifying moment that landed in his upcoming 2026 memoir, Renaissance of a Boss.
Ross and 50, right? Ross is not, they got a beef because 50 didn't say what up to him. That's just a New York thing.
Right.
At one of the awards. I wasn't there, but that's how it sparred.
Right.
Nigga ain't say what's up to me. Cause down south, y'all have more of a...
Yeah, hey, how you doing?
Notes from a creative reawakening. He wrote about suffering another seizure. This one triggered after eating psychedelic mushrooms. The incident got so bad, it forced an emergency landing mid-flight. Ross described it as one of his most terrifying moments ever, saying it was connected to the same long-term health issues that had haunted him for years. He even joked about it later, saying he was marauding through mushroom land like a Super Mario brother when everything went black. But behind that humor was pain. He admitted he was far from grounded, physically, mentally, and emotionally, living in a haze that could have easily ended his story for good. Rick Ross's story isn't just about brushes with death. It's about a man who built an empire from scratch and nearly lost everything because he couldn't slow down. He was going full speed, no brakes, and the universe started throwing punches from every direction. The health scares were only one side of it, because while Ross was fighting his own body, the outside world was coming at him with real smoke, real ops, and moves that weren't fair at all. If the seizures and hospital visits didn't already make his life sound tragic, fate wasn't done testing him yet. Beyond the health issues, Ross got pulled straight into the crossfire of street drama and some of hip-hop's ugliest beefs. On January 28th, 2013, his 37th birthday, Rick Ross became the target of a drive-by shooting in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Can you imagine that? The man was just out celebrating another year of life when somebody decided they wanted to take it from him right there on the spot. Shots fired from another car, chaos everywhere. Ross slammed the gas in his Rolls Royce trying to escape, but in the panic, he lost control and crashed into an apartment building. By some miracle, neither Ross nor the woman riding with him were physically hurt. But mentally, that's the kind of trauma that leaves scars you can't see. Having bullets fly at you on your birthday, that's the type of pain that sticks forever.
Feel about having other people calling themselves the same name as yours?
That's like a double-edged sword, right? You kind of feel flattered, you know, that somebody thought enough of you to name themselves after you. And then I was in prison when I first heard, so it was kind of disrespectful because I said, well, you know what, he could have reached out and asked me.
That shooting wasn't random either. It came after online death threats from the gangster disciples who claimed Ross disrespected their symbols and demanded payment. Ross wasn't about to fold, though. He saw it for what it was, extortion, and doubled down by hiring 24/7 security. Still, the message was loud and clear. Living like the boss came with a target on your back, no doubt about it. All that violence mixed with non-stop industry beef only cranked up the stress he was already drowning in. It became a vicious loop. Stress led to more substances. Substances led to more health problems. And those health problems made him even more vulnerable. Around and around it went, and every turn pushed him closer to the edge. And speaking of beef, let's talk about the one that shaped a whole era of hip-hop. No cap. Hey, how you doing? That's Tony Yayo describing how the legendary feud between Rick Ross and 50 Cent first popped off, all because of a so-called disrespectful look at the 2008 BET Awards. Just a single glare turned into one of the longest-running rivalries in rap history, 15 years and counting. By January 2009, Ross fired the first lyrical shot with Mafia music, calling out 50's personal life, his child support issues, and even a house fire involving his baby mama. 50 didn't hold back either. He clapped back with Officer Ricky, Go Ahead, Try Me, and went nuclear. That track did something that followed Ross for years. It dragged out his secret past. Turns out, before he became the biggest boss, William Roberts was working as a correctional officer from 1995 to 1997.
So when you hear those type of stories, it just kind of make you feel like, you know, what's with this guy? You know, why can't this guy just come out and say,
be honest.
you know, what I am and what I do? And then the way he raps too, you know, he raps about selling drugs.
Right.
And he never sold drugs. You know, he was a correctional officer, had a credit card in high school.
And in a culture where street credibility is everything, that revelation hit hard, fans were confused, critics went crazy, and haters used it as ammo. The revelation shook up his whole image. Suddenly, the guy rapping about kingpin moves was being accused of living a double life. But what people didn't realize was that Ross's real power was never just about street credentials. It was about reinvention, about creating a persona so magnetic the world couldn't ignore it. Still, at that moment, the damage was done. The beef with 50 Cent turned into a public war, music videos, diss tracks, and constant shade on social media. It wasn't just competition. It was personal, raw, and ruthless. And while Ross tried to keep his empire steady, the blows from all sides, his health, the streets, and the industry were starting to weigh heavy. That revelation hit like a bomb. When 50 Cent exposed Rick Ross's past as a correctional officer, it didn't just sting, it blew up across the culture. But 50 wasn't satisfied with the diss track. He turned it into a full-on campaign. He dropped an entire Officer Ricky cartoon series clowning Ross and making him the punchline of the internet. Brutal. And 50 didn't stop there. He went next level petty, tracking down Tia Kemp, one of Ross's baby mamas, and putting her on camera to expose him in an interview. Then came the move that went down as one of the coldest, most disrespectful stunts in hip-hop beef history. 50 leaked a private tape involving Lastonia Leviston, another of Ross's baby mamas, and added his own commentary over it. The goal was simple: humiliate Ross on every level possible. That move backfired hard. In 2015, a jury hit 50 Cent with a massive $7 million judgment, $5 million in damages, plus another $2 million in penalties for leaking that tape. It was one of the biggest L's of his career and even played a role in his bankruptcy filing. But by the time that judgment came down, the damage to Ross's image had already been done. Ross handled it cool though. His response on The View was calm, controlled, pure boss energy. But behind that composure, the wounds ran deep. That feud left emotional marks that time couldn't erase.
Of course. Why accumulate everything you can imagine just to drop dead and have a stroke? You got it, man. I'm one of them people who want to call my shots, so I'm going to enjoy life.
Right.
I'm still go get that 10-piece lemon pepper. You feel me? That fried corn, you know,
Right.
a little cheese on the French fries too. I'm going to still do that.
Even in 2025, the tension was still alive. Ross kept firing subtle and sometimes not so subtle shots, offering to buy 50's masters, mentioning his late mother during a ranch flex. It was clear the smoke hadn't cleared. The feud just wouldn't die. It popped up again in 2023 when 50 mocked the sales of Ross and Meek Mill's Too Good to Be True, and again in 2024 during the Wild Drake versus Kendrick Lamar saga. No matter how much time passed, that rivalry stayed burning. But 50 Cent wasn't the only storm Ross had to face. Another heavyweight stepped into the picture: Freeway Rick Ross, the real-life drug kingpin from Los Angeles, whose name the rapper borrowed. The original Freeway was a major figure in the 1980s crack era, reportedly earning millions from his operation before landing in prison. When he got out in 2009, he came straight for the rapper with a $10 million lawsuit claiming his name and story had been stolen. The courtroom battle got intense, but by 2014, the California Court of Appeal ruled in favor of the rapper, saying he had the right to use the name under First Amendment protections for artistic expression. Ross even countersued and won $10 million in damages. But just when people thought the case was buried, the tension reignited. By early 2025, Freeway Rick Ross was back in the media, claiming once again that he's the real Ross and calling out the rapper for living off his legend. The debate sparked new controversy across hip-hop. Who was the real boss? On top of that, Ross's rap sheet was stacking too. Over the years, he caught multiple cases, gun and weed charges in 2008, more possession in Louisiana in 2011, a marijuana warrant in North Carolina in 2014, and the most serious one, kidnapping and assault charges in Georgia in 2015. He eventually pled no contest to aggravated assault in 2017, closing another chapter of legal chaos, but keeping his reputation in constant turbulence. Then came the blow that hit him straight in the heart, literally and emotionally.
Having seizures, I'm just sharing, what I'm doing and what's working with me for everybody that come to my platform.
Do you believe, had you not had the medical emergencies that you had, you would have changed your diet, you would have changed your lifestyle?
I doubt it. I was an all-city athlete. I made all-day class of 1990.
In November 2025, Ross's day one manager and longtime friend, Nadian Black Bo James, passed away at just 45 years old from atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. He was found unresponsive at Ross's house after a night of turning up with the crew. Ross was there when it happened. He saw something was wrong with his brother and couldn't do anything to stop it. He later posted a gut-wrenching tribute online, pouring out his pain for the world to see. The man who had survived his own near-death health scares now had to watch one of his closest people lose that same battle. The irony hit hard. Heart disease took out the man who'd been with him since the come-up, right at the mansion built from their shared dreams. That loss broke through the armor of the biggest boss. It showed the human behind the diamonds and Maybachs. The beefs drained his energy. The violence kept him paranoid. The lawsuits never stopped, and now he was losing the ones who truly mattered. It was the kind of pain no money, mansion, or platinum plaque could fix. The boss mentality wouldn't let him quit, ever. This is the comeback of a true boss. Here's what separates Rick Ross from all the others who faced the same kind of storms. He's still here, and not just surviving, he's thriving, shining harder than ever. By 2025, Ross had pulled off one of the craziest transformations in the game. The man dropped between 75 to 100 pounds, not with surgery or some trend diet, but with pure grind, discipline, and a real desire to live. The same dude who once weighed in at over 350 pounds flipped the script completely. No shortcuts, no gimmicks, just straight commitment. And when you hear him talk about it, it hits different. He once said, if you want to tap out early and everybody puts your t-shirt on, just don't do nothing. That line isn't just about hitting the gym, it's about life. He's talking about watching his friends become faces on memorial shirts, about being inches away from becoming one himself. It's the mindset of a man who stared death down and said, not today. They can't zip rosé up in a bag? That's real talk from a man who made peace with his mortality, but decided he wasn't done yet. That's the difference between surviving and living. And it's not just his body that leveled up. His business moves turned legendary too. Ross founded Maybach Music Group back in 2008, putting on stars like Meek Mill, Whale, and Gunplay. But his empire now stretches far beyond music. The same man who almost died from neglecting his health started investing in health. That's poetic justice right there. Now Ross is stacking paper through a diversified empire. Wingstop franchises, Bel Air Rosé Champagne, Wrap Snacks, Cora Meal Prep, and more.
You already know, my Jet Doc. This is a health app. 10 years ago, I went through having seizures back to back. And so what it did was, I started working out, I got healthier, but the experience that touched me the most throughout the whole situation was the older people that I would meet sitting in the doctor's waiting room in the office. The type of doctors I'm going to see is for your brain, and so the situation is a lot serious.
He's building wealth while creating opportunities for his people, stacking a net worth estimated at over $90 million. The boss energy is real, and musically, Ross never fell off, not once. He's dropped over a dozen studio albums that kept him in rotation for nearly 2 decades. His 2019 album, Port of Miami, debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200, proving he could still run the charts like day one. Then came Too Good to Be True with Meek Mill in 2023, an album that shut down anyone claiming Ross was past his prime. Even pushing 50, he's still respected, still relevant, and still wrapping circles around half the game. But Ross wasn't done making his mark. On December 16th, 2025, he announced his 3rd book, The Renaissance of a Boss, Notes from a Creative Reawakening. Set to drop on May 12, 2026, the book documents an epic cross-country road trip, a spiritual and creative journey where Ross hit the road to rediscover himself. He stopped by Elvis Presley's Graceland, joined a Native American sweat lodge ceremony, and took deep moments to reflect on how far he's come. Ross described the book as an Emmanuel for greatness, saying, "I'm cutting out the noise and showing you that when you execute with precision, success is too easy. That's not arrogance, that's experience. A man who's lost, learned, and leveled up speaking facts. See, that relentless drive, the same energy that once almost killed him, is now what's keeping him alive. The hustle that nearly broke him became his medicine."
If I'm reading you correctly, and I think I am on this situation, a lot of the things that you become involved in is through personal experience. I mean, you like wings? Hell, let me start a wing stop. I like this kind of beverage. Let me start this kind of beverage. I'm going to see a doctor about yada, yada, yada. Let me start this.
Exactly. That's just me following my...
When Ross redirected that fire from self-destruction to self-mastery, everything changed. He used the same energy that built Maybach music to rebuild his life. He flipped tragedy into triumph. Even after all the chaos, the seizures, the shootouts, the lawsuits, Rick Ross is still breathing, still bossing up, still expanding, and the craziest part, the world kept doubting him. During his 2018 hospitalization, death rumors spread like wildfire. Social media had him gone before doctors even cleared him. Even by 2024, Reddit threads were still asking, is Rick Ross even alive? The wild part is, those rumors only added to his legend. Ross became a living myth. A man who's been counted out more times than anyone, yet refuses to fold. The Biggest Boss has proven that resilience isn't just about staying alive. It's about evolving, transforming, and coming back stronger than before. And here we are, 2026, and Rick Ross is still alive and thriving. The man still stacking wins, still running businesses, and still living that boss life. But this time, with wisdom guiding every move. From his music empire to his Wingstop franchises and other ventures, Ross keeps proving that the hustle never dies. It just evolves. These days, he's a whole new version of himself. Ross has been open about how those near-death moments forced him to hit the brakes and completely change how he lives. He went from sipping lean in the studio until sunrise to actually getting rest, hitting the gym, and being mindful about what goes into his body. That's growth you can see. Now, Ross uses his story to push health awareness in hip-hop, a culture that too often glamorizes excess and substances. By being honest about his own struggles, he cracked open conversations that other artists were too scared to start. He turned vulnerability into strength. And that's real boss energy. From surviving shootouts and hospital beds to getting a street named after him in his hometown of Clarksdale, Mississippi, Ross's journey is living proof of what resilience truly means. He's influenced culture, changed fashion trends, mentored artists across the globe, and built generational wealth while keeping his name solid in the streets and the boardroom. So what is the tragic fate of Rick Ross really? It's not death, it's not destruction, it's transformation. It's the story of a man who had every possible obstacle, his health, his enemies, his habits, his critics, and still refused to let any of it define his ending. Rick Ross's tragic fate was that he had to almost die multiple times to learn how to live. He had to feel his body shut down, face bullets on his birthday, fight endless industry beefs, and lose the people closest to him before realizing that survival is the biggest flex there is. Every setback became a stepping stone. Every loss turned into a lesson. Every day he wakes up now, he's proving that he's not just alive, he's living with purpose. That's Ross's true victory. Because when you really look at it, the biggest boss move isn't the mansion, the Maybach, or the millions. It's survival. It's choosing health over destruction, peace over ego, and growth over chaos. That's what makes Rick Ross unstoppable. Where he's been doesn't control where he's going, and that's the ultimate truth. The boss is still standing, stronger than ever, sharper than ever, and more focused than ever. That's not just success, that's legacy. That's power. And if you vibed with this story and respect the grind, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives just like this. Let's keep these conversations alive, keep learning from the legends, and keep pushing for greatness. See you in the next video. Stay blessed, stay focused, and keep bossing up.